Dun dun dun! The F bomb, the F bomb. We are live. Thank you, Freiburger, for the shirt. Long ago, but still very cool. Popping wheelies on dirt, a la Fast and the Furious, which was very good. Very cool. They put a ton of weight in the back of that thing, so it actually would do wheelies on loose surface like that. Because I remember being in the movie theater and especially after that, people saying, "Oh, that's just dumb. That would never happen. It would never pop wheelies on the dirt." I'm like, yeah, it actually would. In fact, it was way too wheelie prone. If anything, it was just like boop, 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 top. Because when you put 1,000 or 1,500 pounds in the trunk, it makes it a lot easier to pop wheelies like that. So very cool. But today we're talking about the small block Chevy, the original OG performance Chevrolet motor. And the question is, given the fact that everybody is, the whole industry really has been for a long time revolved around LS performance stuff, is the small block still a viable option for people? Are people still doing that? So if you look at the thumbnail photo that I have, it's a very, very, very vibrant lime green. Awesome. I'm a fan because my original 1970 and I have my first car, 1970, have a split bumper Camaro, was originally that kind of not quite that bright lime green, which is very, very, very bright. But mine was the lime green, the little more subdued version from GM with a white vinyl top. Later on would become a red car with black vinyl top. Much more, if it's a Camaro, it's got to be resale red, right? But very, very bright green with a very cool small block. I think was an aluminum headed 383 with a Torque Storm supercharger on it. So, and then Ish was doing the tuning on it. So, you know, definitely performance potential there. But the thing is, how many people out there would look at it and go, "Wow, you should just put an LS in it. You shouldn't. Nobody should even be building small blocks," because we get those kinds of comments too. I mean, you're going to get that anyway. You're going to get the guy that the thing that he has is the best in the world, regardless of whatever the reality is. Just like you get guys that want to complain, no matter what you try to explain to them, they're just going down that complaint deal. And then you get guys that are good guys that want to be nice, but you'll get guys on both sides of that. If you're a modular Ford guy, you don't really care about a small block Chevy, and you're gonna say that your Ford is best and say that the Chevy's no good. But with reasonable individuals, is the question is the small block a viable deal? Do people still go to the wrecking yards? We know that we go get LS stuff, and we know that we put cams and springs in them and put turbos on and stuff, and that seems to be a very, very common approach for almost anything. They're swapped in all kinds of stuff. Volvo wagons, for instance, very, very, very cool swap. I'm a big fan of Volvo wagons, although I also like to see them done with the 4-cylinder stuff and turbos on those, because anything that you have, when you add boost to it, it's full of boosty goodness. But a small block Chevy, before the advent of the LS, obviously the small block Chevy was the go-to kind of, it was the darling of the industry. The 5-liter Ford, I think, kind of started taking that over. And then when we had the introduction of the LS, then we based that not just on being an LS guy or being a 5-liter Ford guy or being a Chevy guy before that. But if you look at actual sales of things like the performance parts for these things like camshafts and stuff, which I've had access to some of that data, and you can see that the LS outsells everything, almost more than everything combined, to put it into perspective. So it definitely is the top dog right now. But the thing is, the small block Chevy enjoyed that for a long time. And does that mean the small block Chevy now is all but irrelevant, or they're not guys doing that? We got to realize that the small block Chevy has been around for a long time, and there are lots of guys out there that are very, very familiar with and know how to make power with them. And there are lots of classes still out there, short track stuff and things, where they're still running small block Chevys in a lot of things. And a lot of guys still have small block Chevys because anything that was pre-LS, obviously, well into the 90s was still small block Chevy powered, and for and big block Chevy powered. So all both of those good. So lots of them still out there running around. Lots of small block Chevys swapped things in there because it was very popular, just like the LS is now. And still lots of performance oriented parts for them. Lots of different cylinder heads available from obviously lots of camshafts, turbochargers, superchargers, all kinds of different things, nitrous kits for small block Chevys. And so the question is, how much are guys still doing that? Or do you think that guys still go down to the wrecking yard and get a Vortex small block, which is the one that I would be looking at? You're not going to go to the wrecking yard and find, for instance, you won't go there and find an LT1 or an L76. You won't find an L84, which is a fuel injected 375 horse 327. You're not going to just go find one of those in the wrecking yards. Those days are long gone. But you can still go get a Vortex small block with a cam in it that would make as much power as any of these muscle car small blocks fairly easily. And then if you did some sort of aluminum headed version of that, like the later LT1 stuff is also a viable deal and still is a small block. Because we went through on the small block Chevy side, they had lots of performance oriented stuff during the original muscle car era, and then they went down through a dip in performance, let's say, in the 70s, and that started coming up in the 80s when they started introducing things like that L69, the HO305, and then the L98 tune port stuff through that whole area when they were fuel injected. Even it could be argued that the L82 was a decent performer, and I guess to some extent the Crossfire fuel injected L83 was the start of things that start coming back into the performance arena after the dip, because we had some small blocks that were, I think, factory rated 130 or 140 horsepower, which for the small block guy was a big change from the 370 or 375 horse stuff that they saw. Even though the ratings number was different, it still was disheartening for small block guys to have those kinds of power numbers and that the associated performance that goes along with such a little bit of power. They were still fairly torquey, but not great. So my question is, and that will be the poll for today, and we'll talk a little bit about projects, because today's our morning motivation for projects. So get your projects done. I actually brought back a couple of exhaust systems that I'm going to give to Oliver, the kid that owns the Nova, that won the Nova. The guys at West Tech had them, and they were just going to toss them out. And I said, well, just give them to me, and I'll put them in my truck, and I'll take them back up north, and I'll give them to Oliver, and that way he can use it, because it has over axle stuff, and I think that there's part of a 3-inch system there and a part of a 2.5-inch system, so he can make whatever he wants, maybe even make a couple of them, whatever. And so he's got that, and he can help put it in rather than throw it away. Let's just repurpose it. And because it was an exhaust system that they had run, I think, with Engine Masters, and they had done the testing that they needed to do and modified it specifically for the test that they were doing. And so they were just going to get rid of it. And I'm like, no, that's for a guy that's a do-it-yourself guy, that's like a gold mine. That's a good piece there to have. And especially if the price is right, if it's free and somebody's going to deliver it, like I will do it. He could come get it, or I can take it over there. But we have that stuff to go to him, so that will be a good project. And then I think we have solved the 2.2 liter flywheel flex plate bell housing issue, so that should be able to run. And the 2.5 has been taken apart and is going over to the machine shop to get repaired, and hopefully that short block will be done. I already have another cylinder head for it. So if the short block gets done, then we can put that thing together and run the 2.5 along with the 2.2. So that will be good stuff. And then I might even have another one, because when it rains, it pours. I might have another one that a gentleman had offered up, and I'm going to probably take him up on it. He's got a forged internal 2.2 assembly that I might be able to get. And then, so we'll hopefully put that thing together. And that's something that we could beat on pretty hard then, and put studs in it, maybe 4-volt mains and fully ported head and all kinds of crazy stuff, and then turn the boost up to 1,000,000 pounds and see what happens, because that's why you do it. So our poll for today will be, start a poll. You ever pick a small block Chevy to Would you ever pick a small block Chevy as a performance swap candidate? That would be our poll for today. Bow, 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 bow. Today is for us, for our family. Today is cookie party day. My mother has been doing cookie parties for Christmas, where they all get together and she makes a bunch of cookies and frosting, and they all sit around the table and tell stories and family stories and stuff. And it's for all the little kids, and so they've been going there for generations, basically, which is very, very cool. So they all get together with her, and they all get to sit around and decorate cookies and put frosting on them and eat frosting, apparently, and eat cookies, and then they decorate them for their families and bring them home. So it's kind of a cool family tradition. Let's see what we got going on. Squirrels is here. I built tons of small block Chevys for demolition derbies. Very good. They just handle running with no water in the engine pretty good. Do you, Tim, do you ever build small block 400s for the derbies? Are there any of those around still? Yeah, that car is very, very bright lime green. It's even brighter in person. I put up a thing on, I put up a reel on Facebook, and you could see it. Ish was doing the tuning. Oh, switch to live chats. That's right. Man, I forget that every time. We are live. Morning motivation at 4 p.m. That's right. It's morning somewhere. Small block Chevy isn't dead. It never will be, but they aren't nearly as popular as they used to be. It's all LS and Ford stuff. Recals in the house. Yeah, Saturdays are good. Just switched. Always forgot. Small block Chevy aftermarket markets are still selling well. They are. They're still a good market for them. It would be interesting to see how many cylinder heads small block Chevys have had available for them versus the LS. I think it's probably pretty comparable. Volvo wagon should have a 5-cylinder. I agree. I think that is very, very cool, because it's much better to say that the normal stuff is it has an LS swap in it. If you swap something, if it has a stock motor in it, it's either a 4-cylinder or a 6-cylinder. But it's very cool. In fact, I should make like the odd man out shirts for guys that have 5 cylinders and guys that have 3 cylinders too, like the Chevy Sprint Turbo. Buying a rebuilt 5.7 TBI from Jegs and having them tell me they didn't need the core back. It could be a clue either way. That's right. Inline 5 C30 would be cool, since he didn't get that Focus RS, same platform. Do you think there would be gas-powered cars 50 years from now? Also, I know this is random, but could a 500 Cadillac make 850 horsepower on pump gas in an 87 square body? I think a Cadillac could make that power, but it would be under boost. The Cadillac doesn't have really good heads. There are some available, but they're fairly expensive. The aluminum heads for Cadillacs are. 50 years from now, I think you'll still see internal combustion engines. I don't know how they're going to get away from that. They may be hydrogen powered by then, but I still think that the big rig diesel truck stuff it's going to be hard to get away from that. They made like 1 billion small block Chevys. Yeah, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it's a lot. They need the aftermarket to be a decent engine. The LS is good. How is it? And the aftermarket makes it even better. Yeah, it is. Although we have to remember that the guys like us that are performance guys that are doing modifications on them, we are a very, very tiny percentage of the actual LS owners or the actual small block Chevy owners. We tend to think that the world revolves around us and our performance needs, but the reality is most people just drove the cars around, and they made an awful lot more 307 2-barrel powered station wagon 350s than they ever did make, fuel injected Corvette motors. A 240 with a T5 from an 850 is a normal swap here in Sweden. That's a good combination. I love the Volvos. I love the Volvo wagons and stuff. And it would be very, very cool to have a super powerful one. Ever since I saw the guys, and I like the early Volvos too, the little coupe, whatever that thing's called. But ever since the guys from Volvo brought cars out to the Silver State race, they brought the T5Rs and they had the sedan and they had a wagon too. I'm like, oh, dude, I mean, as much as I like them, they look good. I'm just like, dude, I'm all in on the wagon. You got it, because you have all the utility. Is the video freezing? Gas will be here around, but there will be a change for sure. Cylinder head companies are still making improvements in aftermarket heads for the small block Chevy. They are. And if you look at the off-road, although now they seem to have gone over to big blocks, but for the off-road stuff, they weren't using LSs, not very much, not nearly as much as they were using altered valve angle, these small block Chevy heads. We've got those 240Ts. Yep. I highly doubt any company is still putting time and money into R&D on small block Chevy stuff. The head market is still continuing to go. There's still new head offerings for them. I think it comes to accessibility. LS is becoming dear in Australia, so it becomes as common at the moment to be building older small block Chevys. Yeah, you got to, and that's what I was talking about in Middle America. I think that's probably still small block Chevy land, and in other countries as well. You build what you have a lot of and what's affordable, and so whatever that is, you got to make that happen. I have a couple small block Chevy piles and parts and blocks in the shop now. Yeah, I'm surprised. I don't think I have a small block Chevy in all of the motors that I have right now currently. One is a Volvo 5.7 Marine application engine with some cool add-ons, block drains, quick drain petcocks. Those make it really nice for dyno applications because it's a lot easier to drain the motors. Just because it's not the latest and greatest doesn't mean it's obsolete. I agree. A 3.2 setup. Yeah, anytime you have, any sort of multi-carb induction system, that's much better. A tri-power, a cool cross ram, a tunnel ram, stack, 6 deuces, whatever is, that's all good. Dean, 15.2 in the quarter, 7-speed L82 for 84 versus 15.8 for an 82 Corvette. 1984 didn't have an L82. That was an L83 Crossfire. Did you make a mistake when you put that in there? 145 top speed versus 137. Small block Chevy will never die. I'm the only insane person running an L31 in my drift car. Everyone else is LS swap. The one thing about that is nice about the LS stuff, and especially if you come from the small block Chevy mentality and even the small block Ford mentality, or that era where you were making performance-oriented versions of those, the very cool thing about LS stuff is, one, we didn't have or there weren't aluminum heads except from the aftermarket until later on the small block stuff, and on the small block Ford stuff, they didn't have them from the factory. So, and also not aluminum blocks. So on LS, getting an all aluminum motor, especially one with a composite intake, which made it even better, was so much lighter, and that's why they're so nice to package. I know most guys use the iron block stuff because they made those in trucks, and the aluminum stuff was much more rare in trucks and in the car versions. So they didn't make nearly as many of them because, let's face it, they make 100,000 trucks for every one Camaro or Corvette. So that's why we see those. But still, it's it makes for because before, if you were thinking about, I want an all aluminum small block Chevy, that was a lot of money to buy an aftermarket aluminum block and aftermarket aluminum heads, and then I don't know that you would have even found a composite intake anywhere. And the same thing for the small block Ford. If you wanted a 5-liter Ford, I remember oohing and eyeing over, as an original 5-liter Mustang owner, oohing and eyeing over the possibility of ever even having, an all aluminum motor. And now, look, you could, if you were quick and sharp enough and knew an inside guy, you could go find one of those at the wrecking yard. The L33 is a perfect example of me just getting lucky, but that's a viable deal for, that's an all aluminum motor that is now making 480 horsepower NA that could go in a Mustang, which would be, as much or more than my Vortec supercharged 5-liter was making at the time. Small block Chevy is like a belly button, not cool, not a cool on a supermodel, but more like on a fat guy with a crop top. That's not good. Morning motivation at 4 p.m. That's right. Morning is morning. This is not even morning for me either. This is just when we could get it done. Close the poll. You won, Dean. Nice. So this is a win today. You can still count it as a win. I pull small block Chevys out and put LSs in Pontiacs. Nice. Yeah, the cookie party's awesome. I need to get over there. Anyone want small block Chevy stuff? Yeah. Do you have any all aluminum small block Chevy stuff? If size matters in the 13B, but if 13B with a turbo, it has to have a turbo on it. 13B would be good. Let's see. Let's see. Throw a turbo on a small block Chevy and you'll hurt some LS feelings. It's that's not why I would do it, but it is certainly possible to take any combination, whatever the NA power output is, whether it's small block Chevy or big block Chevy, small block Ford, LS, whatever it is, and then you add boost to it. We know where we get to. So it has that potential. They all have that potential. And so you can make lots of power. I enjoy the different firing order of the small block versus the LS. I have a 350 in my 63 C10. How's our poll doing? 82% saying yes. Would you ever pick a small block Chevy as a performance candidate? Nice. 82%. I like that. The OG getting some love. I have a small block 400. Not a Derby engine, though. You're replacing it with a 6-liter. That's probably a good choice. Although the 400 guys are not going to like hearing that. Did you see the 3.4 or 3.6 cylinder blueprint? Yeah, I've had about 15 guys send me screenshots of that, and I saw it when it was. I think it was on display. It was either SEMA or PRI. I guess it sent me a bunch of stuff on it. Building a turbo 355. I've run some turbo stuff on some small blocks. It works good, and blowers and all kinds of stuff. Peanut butter blossoms. No, they're doing sugar cookies because it's it's Christmas. Although Lisa just made snickerdoodles, which are my favorite cookie that she makes. They're awesome. Oh, the 400s overheat in the derbies. Small block Chevy needs aftermarket heads. It certainly does. There's no factory small block Chevy head that will flow nearly as much as the LS stuff does. I have a 91 Firebird convertible, just clean and stock, short of an open air cleaner. Went to an F-body show. They only made 900 of them. Every F-body had an LS swap in it already. Yeah. I actually won the show. There, you hear bad things about the TBI engines? Making ethanol is a lot cheaper than hydrogen, easier to work with and greater range. I'm doing an 070 swap and a 944. I've always liked the 944s. They're really good handling cars. I like the 924 that I had, especially after we did suspension on it. But man, after you do suspension and stuff on it, put tires and wheels on it, then you think this thing's seriously underpowered now. It definitely needs boost. So motorsports, the small block Chevy stuff is still selling well. That's good. Gelbank's made a stock block twin turbo blow through carb setup that made 1100 the early 80s on pump gas. On a small block? That seems like a lot on a small block. Although, I guess with the right stuff on it. Uh, 10 gallons of water makes 2 gallons of fuel with Rubo yeast, 1 gallon with baker's yeast. So you got to change your yeast to make it. Green Machine, you have a 72 El Camino. What does it have a motor in it right now? The thing that I like about a small block swap over an LS swap for a car like that is obviously it drops right in. You don't have to have any sort of special mounts or anything. And also, if you go to the wrecking yard, if you didn't get a Vortec motor, which is one I would recommend, you can get stuff that already has induction systems on it. It's got a distributor, it's got a carburetor, it's got a carbureted intake manifold, and then you could put it in and it could run. Whereas with an LS, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to get a carburetor and an intake manifold and an ignition controller if you want to run a carburetor, or you have to get all of the fuel injection stuff. So then you have to figure out which way is cheaper. If you're getting a Vortec headed motor, and you're going to make it carbureted, you could get the distributor from the wrecking yard, but you're not going to find a carbureted intake manifold at the wrecking yard for a Vortec, I don't think. So then you have to buy an intake manifold, and then you have to get a carburetor, which you also have to do with an LS. Then it's just a matter of buying the ignition controller. But then on the LS, you also have to get possibly other accessories, which you might have on a small block, or they come with the small block. Different motor mounts and things. So exhaust, and you just have to do a line item thing on what all the costs are going to be to swap that in there. Dean Pizza. We got pizza waiting for us over. That's part of the cookie party. Pizza is also part of the cookie party. LSs are cheaper, but will never sound as good as a built small block. It's not much love for the Gen 2 engines, but I'm in the beginning of building an LT4. A carbureted LT engine is also a viable deal because it uses a standard distributor. You just need a carbureted intake and then obviously a carburetor, but the distributor you could get from the wrecking yard. So that's also an option. Get rid of the OptiSpark. Does anybody remember what happened to the 32 valve Dominion small block heads? I remember seeing those at the SEMA show a few times, but I don't know how well they worked. South Australia's in the house. I lost the world. You don't want to bear the world? Let's see. LT4 Kong blower, that's good. Delusions are free. Man, I need to catch up. I'm trying to catch up, but there's so many. Let's see. Let's see. Come on. Steve Morse used to sell 800, 900 horsepower small block 350 turbo kits. That's just an S475. Whiskey Ellis had 5 bolts per cylinder like the small block Chevy. Not that it's much of an issue, but it would be nice. I was never a fan of the Siamese exhaust ports on the small block Chevys. Yeah, that's one thing I don't like about the small blocks. And I'm not really that concerned, given what we did with the small block Ford stuff and the 10 head bolts. I don't really think that that's an issue. Obviously, we've seen guys make a bajillion horsepower out of the LS stuff. Dean, congratulations on the winning team side. My nephew's in his early 20s, building a small block instead of an LS for his HQ, just to be different. Nice. Frosting or no frosting on the snickerdoodles, but definitely frosting on the sugar cookies. I have a small block with a mild cam, my 72 Chevelle. You're, it's like I'm a jerk nowadays. You're not. Nothing wrong with a good small block, especially in a Chevelle. 65 Pontiac GTO with a Z06 engine. It is a good thing. It's a good car and a good motor, and if it speaks to you, does it make you happy? That's the important thing. GM LT8 build in the future? Probably not. How about a 383 with an NV 3500 behind it? 944 LS swap is a winning combo. An aluminum one would be good because that car needs something lightweight in it. I've been looking at the MSD boost boxes. What do you think of the digital programmable box versus the BTM? I'm not familiar with the boost box. Let me see what that is. I see the boost timing master. I don't see a boost box. I don't see what that is. So I don't know. I thought the LT1 and LT heads were close to the LS. An LT4 head might be, although an LT4 head is not anywhere near what an LS3 head is. It might be close to a cathedral head. Too many people don't want to deal with LS electronics. Too many people think LSs are ugly. The small block Chevy will never die. Yeah, I agree with the from a visual standpoint, an LS like a 5.3 with the truck manifold on it, not nearly the eyeball that it should have. Let's see. Rural racing here in South Australia last night. Nice. The winner is the first 3-time winner in a row. Small block Chevy twin turbo, extremely fast, and drove it home with his trailer. Nice. I like cars. I like drivers. Put a 3-way OBD2 and boost your mile per gallon by 15 miles an hour and horsepower by 180. Uh, 1979 Gale Biggs made 1,000 horsepower small block Chevy from a 355 NASCAR high nickel block and quality internal parts. Yeah, that seems right. Just not stock bottom end stuff though, right? Can a similar horsepower big block get the same horsepower fuel economy as a small block? I don't think so. I don't think that will happen. Let's see. The Aurora Pontiac oval track small block Chevy with oh. I'm leaning towards a turbo Buick 455 or a Maribel for my next trick. Nice. I myself don't think that the small block Chevy is dead. I think that there's just too many of them out there for people to dismiss it. I know that obviously the LS is really popular, but there's lots of guys doing small block stuff, and it's still, you can still make a lot of power with it. A small block Chevy with airflow research heads on it is or something similar is definitely have lots of power potential. And even if you the question really isn't, there would be multiple questions. So one of the questions would be, can it make as much as an LS? As an absolute thing, yes, it can. A motor of a given displacement, if you work at it, is going to make similar power to another motor of equal displacement. We see that in every form of racing. So if 2-liter motors is the limit, then the guys all seem to make fairly comparable power. So same thing with an LS and a small block. So it's an absolute term, yes. So then the question would be, well, which one's cheaper to build? Then you'd have to argue about exactly what your goal is. So is your goal to make 1,000 horsepower? Which one of those could you make 1,000 horsepower cheap with? Probably the LS, because you'd select 1,000 horsepower turbo for both of them. The problem is that the small block would be a lot harder without decent heads. Now you could port those and make a reasonable amount of power if you were pretty good at porting, and put a camshaft in it, and then turn the boost up. I think you could make 1,000 horsepower with home ported Vortec heads and a decent cam and a blow through carburetor and on a small block. I think that it would do that. I don't know how long that would last. I don't know about the strength limit of the small block versus the LS. The LS, we know guys are running those a lot. I'm guessing you could do that with a small block. I don't know. But that's also not the only question. The question isn't which one will make more power. That's not really a question, because they could make the same. And I don't even think that the question is which one makes more power cheaply. I think the question is, how much power are you looking for? And which one of them can do that? And also there are other side questions, like, are you starting with, if you have a 74 Nova, I think they made 74 Novas. If you have a 74 Nova that already has a 307 in it, let's say, in our theoretical application, you already have a motor to start with. So it'd be more likely that you're going to do that anyways. You put a cam and springs and a 150 shot on it, and you're going to the track and having fun. So it'd be more likely that you would do that. So what are you starting with? So there are a lot of other considerations here, not just these like absolutes. A guy that has an LS and only wants to defend his position because he had to have made the best choice ever, because that's the only kind of choices that they have. You either have the very best choice ever or the wrong choice. And anybody else that didn't make a choice that he made is the wrong choice. But the question is, there's no absolutes like that. So you don't need to just defend your position. You need to look at all of them. If a guy is out there and his goal was to run 13s, and he had a small block and he put a 4-barrel quadrojet on and a little cam and a 150 shot, and he went out and ran 13Os, and now he wants to run 12s, that's a win. That's not a, oh, you could have made a lot more power with an LS or a big block or whatever other thing that you want to put on there. The question is, how can you succeed in your desired goal? And also, for a lot of guys, they like that. They understand small block Chevys. They speak that. That's been their thing. They understand it. They know how to rebuild quadrojets or Hollies. They know how to jet them. They know how to do timing curves or whatever. They know how to port 882 heads or Vortec heads. And so that's their thing. So there would be actually a lot of questions that go into figuring out which thing that you want to use. Maybe you want to take that out. Maybe you want to put a turbo 4-cylinder in there, a trophy 4-cylinder Pontiac, or whatever. Whatever the thing is, you get to decide ultimately what is the right choice for you, not somebody else, not a LS absolutist or a small block Chevy absolutist either. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll out. We're going to take off a little bit early. Would you ever pick a small block Chevy as a performance swap candidate? And 78% saying yes. So I like that. I like the variety. Variety is the spice of life. Let's see. Drag racing. I remember being an age where I dismiss entire brands and platforms because there is a best. Exactly. I've been down that road many, many times. More so, hopefully, years back. Uh, when I thought I knew more and actually knew less. That's very important. You get to different levels, I think, and the ultimate level is if you listen to if any of you have done any martial arts or anything, the ultimate level is the instructor, because he's the guy that has gone through all of the things and now is giving back. That's the guy. That's the guy ultimately you want to be. You don't want to be the guy that knows more than everybody, because you're not. You want to be the guy that like helps others. That's in the step up the pyramid. That's the top one, and so that's the guy that you want to get to, and it's hard, especially especially on social media, especially on the internet, because you get guys that just want to throw shade because that's what they want to do. There's no logic behind it. There's no rationale. It's just that's where they are. And then if you're trying to help out, you just go, look, I can help out this number of people, as many people as I can. I can give them the information. Hopefully they do something good with it. But I can't make everybody do that. As much as you would want to help, you just can't do that. And so it's the same thing with this small block Chevy and LS thing, or Ford or Dodge or Pontiac or whatever. The trophy 4-cylinder, I did it because it speaks to me. I thought it was cool. It's very cool that somebody went to the trouble of making this thing, and that alone made it cool to me. I don't want to make the biggest one, the fastest one, the strongest one ever. And that's one of the things I have to go through constantly with people like, oh, you're doing a 2.2 build. I'm like, nah, I'm not really doing a build, because their idea of a build is that you're going to try to make as much power as you can. That's not my goal for every time I put a motor on the engine dyno. In fact, it's almost never the case. It's 99.99% not the case. And even in the 1% that it was the case, we built a Bonneville motor. Well, you're racing. You need to make as much power as you can. No, you don't. You need to make the amount of power that you need to make to achieve the thing that you're trying to achieve. And in the case of Bonneville, we were trying to go this certain speed. We weren't trying to go as fast as we could. That should never be a thing at Bonneville, unless you're building the Streamliner to go as fast as you can. But even then, you're trying to manage traction. So you can build a motor, and Duttweiler has done it. You can build motors that make 3, 4, 5, 10,000 horsepower, whatever. But you can't ever put that power down, and it's also not going to last. So you have to build the motor to achieve the thing that you're going to achieve. So when we put together the Bonneville motor, it made more than 700 horsepower, where we are only ever using 500 of that, because 500 of that would get the thing done that we needed to get done. So I didn't need to try to take this B series motor and make 1,000 horsepower, be the top guy, make as much as possible. I'm not interested in that stuff anymore. What you should try to do is do the thing that you need to do to achieve the thing that you need to achieve. If all you need is a 400 horsepower drive around every day, looks cool, it got stack injection on it, but idles nice, and drive goes to Cars and Coffee every day, then do that. It doesn't have to be a twin turbo version of that with nitrous that blows up the instant that you try to use all that power, try to harness all that power. It doesn't need to be any of that. It just needs to be the thing that's going to do the thing that you want the thing to do. Very, very easy. And you'll be much more successful at that. And then, like I said, if you can help other people along their way to do that, and try to explain to them why they don't need to make more power than everybody else. Yep. Small block Chevy will live forever. I refuse to go LS. Too late to start collecting LS parts. The interesting thing for me is that when I do, because obviously I'm not a Pontiac expert, I'm not an LS expert, I'm not an any expert. But the thing that's cool is I try so many different motors that I haven't done before. This Trophy 4-cylinder, this 2.2, the Ameribera, the Atlas motor, all of these different weird things. But you get to learn something new all the time. You get to do this. You get to okay, Small block Chevy, carbureted small block Chevy. Yeah, I could do those in my sleep. We know what they do. We know what set the distributor at. We know how to adjust the lash. We need to do all that. We just put that on there, run it. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, that's all great. Okay, now let's do small block Fords. Oh, well, they're different. Small block Dodges. Well, they're different. Modular Fords, 2-valve modular Ford. Look at all the change. Whoa, that's all crazy stuff. It's not. It's just, when the piston's at TDC, the cams have marks on them, the cranks have marks on them. You just line them up just like you do if the chain was shorter, like we've all been doing on small block Chevys. The one dot phase this way or this way or this way and this way, whatever they are, or this way and this way, whichever way they face, where they face. You make that happen and you do the same thing. And then, 4-valve stuff, that's totally different. No, it's the same. You line the cams up. They both line up. They both have marks on them. The big chain has a mark on them. There's not magic. You just got to go in with an open mind and go, look, all of this stuff is possible. The engine was running before. It could run again. And so go in with that sort of attitude. And then we get to learn all of these little nuanced things. And then you have to weed through all, like the 2.2 stuff. You have to weed through all of the stuff that are absolutes that guys have been experienced with and know that this is what this motor does for some reason. And so I ignore all of that. And then, you try to learn from the stuff that others have used, and you use that. And then you weed through the stuff that you think that might not be true. And then you test that and see whether it is or not. And then you provide information based on all the testing, and hopefully it helps everyone. 471 blown trophy 4-cylinder. I know I've seen those. Those are cool. Bam, 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 bam. I think people who stick to platforms and become a master at it is worth respect too. That is true. The problem is that a lot of times people will, they'll think that they're the master and they're really not. That there is always somebody that's going to be better at you than that. There will always be that. Always. And if you speak with a true master, he will tell you that, or she. And Mexico, that's true. Does it run and drive when you want to use it? That's a really big win. Don't get it perfect, just get it run. Don't get it right, just get it running. So you want to join the 200-mile-an-hour club? Got to get a red hat. That's right. And not just 200. You got to get a record at 200. West Virginia's in the house. I know enough to know I don't know everything. Yeah, exactly. The more that you learn, the more you realize that you don't know. Do you have a preferred cubic inch for a manual trans street cart? No, I wouldn't. I don't think it would be based on displacement. A racer was talking about iron heads being aluminum heads on the track. You get that sort of myth about, I don't like aluminum heads because the iron heads keep all the heat in and they make more power, yada yada yada. I don't. There's no form of racing that I know where they allow aluminum heads and that they allow iron heads where they will pick an iron head over an aluminum head. There's no form of racing that does that I know of. 4-bolt steel crank and hopefully a bigger cam just to explore. Just need to explore uranium injection when you say that you've seen it all. I have 30 years of experience working on Fords, never owned a Chevy, but I really don't have anything against them. You shouldn't. There'd be no reason to put something else down that you don't use just because you don't use it. One more minute. Steve Morris has an LS with an old school small block Chevy firing order in it. Yeah, you can alter the firing order at the camshaft. That's not a big deal. Will a studded 2-bolt main small block Chevy live at? I'm seeing where the Is that 7,000 RPM? Is that why you had the others? What is that? The and sign? The you don't. It doesn't even have to be studded really to run at 7,000 RPM. The 2 bolt's not going to determine that. Small block Chevy 400 carbureted engine versus a 6-liter fuel injection engine. Which one would make the most horsepower, and which one would you choose? That's too vague of a question. Because is it a carbureted small block, 400-inch like sprint car motor versus a 6-liter fuel injected stock truck LQ4? I mean, you'd have to. That's not enough information to decide which one of those. Both of them can make lots of power. Have you enjoyed watching the World Cup? Yeah, we're going to get up early and watch the finals tomorrow. I think Lisa taped recorded I think that the third place match was today, Croatia and Morocco. So I think she recorded that. So nobody tell me what won. Who won. So don't tell me I don't know. But yeah, in World Cup, I really want Argentina to win because I want Messi's career to have that little thing that little stamp that's been missing. Not that, in my opinion, he's number one. I don't think there's anybody else that does the things that he does. There are lots of other people that are great. Ronaldo, obviously. Mbappe, I think, is going to be good. I don't think he's at that level now. I don't think he has anywhere near the ball handling skills that Messi does. I don't think he has. He's young, so he's got a long time left, and I think that he'll be great. But I think that Messi stands alone, and I like to see him. I'd like to see Argentina win a trophy so that he has that along with everything else that he has. Yeah, my youngest son's a soccer player, so we talk soccer. So we're talking about running after EMP strikes. Pontiac V or run after EMP. Well, I think anything will with a point ignition, right? Dean, it's already tomorrow there. Nope. I like to enjoy it. It's like I dated a girl for a while that we would go into the bookstore, like we go into Barnes and Noble, and she would walk in and she was looking for a book, and she would like read the end of the book, and they go, "Oh yeah, this is the one I want." I'm like, "How can you read the end of the book?" And then that's like watching the end of a movie and then going to the movie to watch the movie. I'm like, that's just philosophically wrong. Read the first page maybe, or read the about the author, or read something else. You don't read the end of the book. I don't want to know what's at the end of the movie until the end of the movie, because going through and enjoying everything that's happening, going through and experiencing it all, and then the setup for whatever the thing is, if it's a big reveal or whatever, Luke, I am your father. For those of you, a spoiler alert about Star Wars. But that's the thing. It's supposed to be an emotional roller coaster ride for you, and I do that when I go to movies and books even more so. I'm all in on that. That's part of it. That's part of the enjoyment. You get to go there and be present and hopefully enjoy it. I've been trading futures in this crazy market. I am doing day trading in the morning. So I've been doing stuff with my buddy Jimmy, which is very, very cool. You think 1,000 horsepower is realistic for a 12-to-1 6-liter iron block on a carbureted fogger nitrous steel? You're gonna have to make a lot of NA power, I think, to get to realistically get to 1,000 horsepower with nitrous. You're looking at making it be a 600 or 600 plus horsepower deal, which is not insurmountable. It just takes a lot. So far, day trading has been very good. We're just doing paper trading right now, but we're all I'm doing is going to school. We're just learning. Twelve to one with some good heads on C16. I think 600 horsepower is doable. Yeah, I've done 600 horsepower 6-liter stuff. It just takes there's head flow obviously that will support that with fairly easily. So with enough camshaft, and if you have high compression on it, although I would do that a particular way too, not just with a big dome piston in it, because that doesn't work very well, but with a small chamber. And then there are lots of intake manifolds that will let you run the RPM that are necessary to get that kind of power. We did it with just a fast intake, put us kind of right there, and lots of torque too. But with any of the short runner single plane style deals or these short runner high rams or those kinds of things, you should be able to get 600 or more out of a 6-liter. And then if you do that, then you have to have 400 horsepower with a nitrous, which is also doable. We've run 300 shots on a 430 or 40 or 50 horsepower. Run 300 shots on 5.3s that have done that. Paper trades don't hit the emotional part. They do for us because we treat it as though it's real. The 150 shot safe on a stock motor. It depends on the power output of the stock motor. Holly split single plane car. That's a pretty good intake manifold. Just so master. You think that the small block Chevy became obsolete when the big block Chevy was introduced? That was a long time ago. Eric, you've been day trading, 16% return. That's good. Everyone with 350 around here has 1,100 horsepower or more. It's not too hard to get somewhere between 400 and 450 out of a small block. It's pretty reasonable with heads and cam and stuff. And I'm sure you could do more than that. 500, 100 horsepower per liter is a pretty good mark. But it takes compression and stuff to do that usually. But let's say that you made 470 or 480 horsepower or even 500 out of a 350, which is certainly doable. And then 1,000 horsepower is, that's just one bar. The small block Chevy doesn't like nitrous or blowers more or less. It does the same thing as every other motor does with those. They just add power. They add power to whatever's there, whatever you're starting with, plus whatever the boost is or the amount of nitrous that you add. Need more 6 cylinders. I have a few of those ready to go. I watched the guy make 1.2 million on a trade. He had 400,000 drawdown first. Yeah, they talk about the greater the risk, the greater the reward, or whatever. But I would never, since I'm doing this, would be doing this as as an investment. I look at it more as a day-to-day work thing. Just the same way that I do YouTube. So I'm not looking to make a fortune or expecting that by any means. For me, it would just be a daily thing that where you're trying to make a very small amount of money every day, but working hard every day to do it. Hard work, as they say, is its own reward. It's been in the 30s where we are in California. Lisa is doing great. You usually need a stroker 3 small block to make 500 horsepower. Master, if he made 500 horsepower, then that LS had to be a 6 liter. The day trading thing is interesting to me because I'm a graphs guy. Obviously, been doing that for a long time, and so pattern recognition stuff is is strong in me. 383 stroke with Vortec heads in my Jeep. I'd say I'm still under 500. Yeah, it depends on if you have a stock Vortec head, it's certainly going to be under 500. But if you have, because there are small block heads that flow more than 300 CFM, if an airflow research or trip flow or those kinds of things, they can certainly support 600 horsepower or more. But whether or not you do that, you have to have a good windage tray, and you have to have enough compression, and you have to have the right intake manifold, and the camshaft obviously is critical for all of that. Shadow, I wouldn't ever do a stroker kit, and yours will be the last question because I've got to get going. I wouldn't ever do a stroker kit on a 6 liter if I was putting boost on it. It might be good. I would think about doing that. The choice for a stroker would be, should I do stroker because it's expensive, or should I do boost? And boost is a much better thing than a stroker is, because if it costs the same, the potential that you get from doing boost versus a stroker is way more. If that's your thing, if you want it to be NA and you want the thing to be torquey and you want it to be a driver, a stroker is a good way to go, because you're going to get lots and lots of low speed power and in the area that you're going to be using it a lot. But is that the thing that you want? So you got to decide what are my goals for this engine? What does I want? What do I want to get out of it? Okay, that's my thing. Now, what's the best way to go about getting that? So there isn't an absolute stroker versus boost or nitrous or whatever. There is what is the thing I'm trying to get done, and now how do I go about getting that done? I got an L33 for $600. That's nice. We're talking stock market. Invested Holly is cheap right now. So is Tesla. Yeah, Airflow Research had a composite intake manifold. I don't think that they're making it anymore, though. And on that note, it's time to go. Go get your projects done, because it's afternoon motivation, which is just fine. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tonight. Should be back at 7. And I'm working on another video right now. Later, Gator. Bow.